the stupid podcast load? Oh, well, fuck it. Your note's right there. Good to go.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Press X Podcast, episode 120, your weekly podcast for gaming news and opinions coming at you each and every Monday. I am Kevin McManus. With me, Nick Hassell.
The God of War himself.
You had your own game debut this week. It's pretty impressive. So we're going to be talking about some Sony price drops.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be talking about our Game Struck, which is this thing that's been going around Twitter.
Yeah.
There's a movie variant, and I'm sure there's a book variant for the 15 people left that still read. But the one that I saw was the game variant all over the place. And then, of course, and most importantly, we're going to be talking about God of War, our impressions of God of War. So we will start with what we've been playing.
Mm-hmm.
And have you played anything besides God of War?
I have played a little more Far Cry 5, but there's nothing really to note. I didn't finish it, so there's no like final impression sort of thing.
Okay. I just want to throw out a few of them right before we get to God of War. Last week I briefly touched on it, but I finished Persona 3 Portable, the female version of it. Mm-hmm. That game, going through PS2 games, that one's a PSP game technically, but it's based off a PS2 game. I've been playing all these PS2 games and stuff. Some of those games still hold up so well.
Oh yeah,
like graphically, sure, they're not the best, but just mechanically, anything that has menus that still hold up today, the turn-based combat, and then most impressively, if there's action games and such that still hold up today, despite maybe camera. That's usually the issue. But man, does Persona 3 Portable hold up really well.
That was my thing with like PS2 focused more on systems and like gameplay, and then PS3 was more like visuals and stuff like that. So that's why I don't go back and replay or go back and think too hard about many PS3 games, but PS2 games still rank up there with the best of them. So.
Yeah, I love seeing their influences being carried over to even modern day games, which we're going to talk about. But yeah, Persona 3, played it as a female, really liked it, loved it. Interesting twist on how the story works and everything, because main character, male, canon character, not so much personality. Main female, very bubbly, kind of the opposite character. So it's cool seeing it from a different perspective. You get different social links, you get to date different people. If you do it right, or you can end up alone, as Kevin does.
Also interesting to note a bubbly personality in that game's world, because it is not Persona 4, I will say.
Yeah, it's not as bubbly, but I like what they did with it. It works because they changed a lot of the social links and stuff to reflect that character in particular, and it's interesting just seeing a different perspective. So I really like that. Mm-hmm. Next up, a big one, Resident Evil 4. So I beat Resident Evil 4 for the first time ever. I made it past my childhood spot, which I found out was not halfway through the game.
Oh, you were way further.
Yeah, I assumed that the 2-disc GameCube thing was, hey, when you hit here, you swap discs, and that's halfway through the game. It's like 85-90% through the game. And I didn't know that, so
I didn't remember that until you were playing it. I was like, oh yeah, you're basically in a specific spot where you change discs, and it's not 50%.
And honestly, the game could have ended there, and I would have been satisfied.
Probably.
But yeah, I played through all of Resident Evil 4. I really, really liked this game. If you think of it as a Resident Evil like survival horror thing, that's not what this game is. This is a modern action game. Mm-hmm. This with these horror elements in it and these survival elements, but it is an action game. I love that they work with their systems that they have, so you can't run and shoot at the same time, but they make it so that enemies can run at you, or they may be slow, and you have this little game of, do I run away and then turn around and shoot it? Do I shoot it now?
Yeah.
Do I barricade myself because I'm going to need a lot of time because this enemy takes a lot of hits? You want to make sure that you're precise with your shots because all of your ammo counts, but at the same time they punish you for hitting certain enemies in certain spots, so you might blast off something's head that you were not supposed to blast off their head, or you might not blast off something's head that you were supposed to, and all of that matters. Their upgrade system's awesome. Their merchant is still a fantastic character, and we get kind of the a reskinning of that almost in God of War, which we'll talk about, and I think that's cool. There's just so much. Like, looking at previous games and looking at Resident Evil 4 and the fact that it still holds up just as a game really well, and seeing how it affected everything to this day is so cool. But yeah, as a survival horror game, But as an action game that has a horror overtone, kind of, like Bloodborne is like that. It's an action game that's just horror themed. Very cool. Very worth playing. There's a couple monster closets and stuff I'd prefer not to go through.
A couple.
Yeah, there's a couple, but there's so many cool boss battle, like unique boss ideas and stuff that I really, really
and the setting's really cool too. Pretty unique.
Yeah. Almost every Resident Evil games are actually sci-fi games. They all end with like a sci-fi thing going on. And I almost prefer it didn't do that in almost every single one, except for like 7 has something going on where they change the setting on you a little bit, but then they strip away all your stuff. So you're back to being vulnerable. And I thought that was a cool way to do it. And in this game, I was kind of waiting to see what they do to make up that gap. And it's like, no, the game's just fun. Like, you just don't care.
Leon's kind of a badass.
Yeah, you don't care because you're having fun. It was their answer to that. There is one time boss battle that I did not like very much. That was the one point in the game where I didn't have that much ammo, and you have 3 minutes to kill the boss and escape. And I was like, it took many a tries. But yeah, Resident Evil 4 definitely easily holds up, worth playing today. So, speaking of things that are worth playing, let's talk about some God of War.
Shall we?
Yeah, we both got about to the same point. We're not going to talk spoilers or anything. We'll talk like vague, do we like the story and stuff, but we're not going to be like, oh, when this happens, that was cool. More talking about mechanics and how we think about it compared to the other.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I'd say we're both probably 8 to 10 hours in the game, something like that. There's definitely a structure that's in place, so there's plenty to talk about.
It seems that way, yeah. So how are you feeling? You liking this? Is this a 10 out of 10? Is this
it's not 10 out of 10 game to me, but it's definitely like quality, like superb quality. You can definitely tell it's kind of like a master stroke with Santa Monica Studios. Like you can tell that they spent a long time on this. A lot of people probably restless nights at the studio, doing their thing. Like it's well crafted, I think is probably what I'm thinking so far.
Very, very polished. The just the environments and everything looks lived in, everything looks alive, even though there's not that many like NPCs to just run up and talk to and stuff like that. Everything is abandoned, but it looks abandoned in a realistic kind of way. For me, interestingly, I like the game a lot, and I think if you have a PS4, you should definitely get this game and play this game. Interestingly enough to me, my biggest issue gameplay-wise is the combat. I'm not a big fan of the new combat.
That is, I don't want to speak in like numerical terms, but a lot of this game is the combat, and a lot of the old games is the combat.
Almost all of the game is the combat.
Like combat is the backbone, has been, but now it's kind of like sharing the same spot with story and character and, just like plot development sort of thing. So if my complaints about the combat were in the other, well, technically 4 games on the table, but the other God of War games, like it would be straight in like the 5 category. Because if you have the problem with the combat in those games, it tanks. Because, like I said, it doesn't have those other features. But the gameplay switches that they made in this, where they're focusing more on story and focusing more on like backstory. Like that's my favorite part of the game so far is the Nordic aspects of the game and all of that lore tied into it, where it's not some other game. I mean, there's very few, you can probably count them on one hand, that do this sort of mythology. They kind of wade into it and it gets lore heavy and you're just like, okay, am I like reading a book or am I playing a game? Like this one's action oriented. You're seeing the characters, you're not reading as much, and when you are getting that lore, it's just like, hey, look at this cool thing, and it's like pictures and drawings and stuff. So that's what's cool to me about it. But yeah, the combat is definitely the thing that's frustrating me the most, and I can tell I'm having the most fun when I'm not fighting.
I agree. And I don't want to say like, oh, this game shouldn't have kind of like the Hellblade thing, which I'm going to bring up Hellblade a lot for this because they are actually very similar.
Yeah.
But just every time I get into the combat, like if I do it first try, I'm like, oh, that was awesome. Yeah. But if I die and then I die and then I die, I'm like, oh, man. And I understand there's like tricks to killing things. Like there's some enemies that, if you hit them with the axe and then you run and kick them, it instant kills them. But like, I don't know. That's just figuring out that stuff wasn't fun for me playing this game, whereas I was having way more fun with the old God of War.
Yeah, I mean, I know you broke it down into categories. If you want to hit those,
I don't know. I just was brainstorming things.
But the combat to me just doesn't feel very fluid. I know it'll get to that point, and I typically don't appreciate games doing that to where it's like, oh, hour 25, now you have all the abilities that, like, you get an A, B, C, but you don't get all the things that link them in together, and you don't feel fluid, and you don't feel like the same Kratos in the other games.
Yeah, it's weird to me that, like, in the other games, you meet with a god, and you're like, here's my power, and then you have a new ability.
Yeah.
But, like, in this game, you're just like, oh, you hit things enough, now you can hit things a new way. It's like, that's not how this works.
You walk over and you punch a chest, and you grab the thing, and then you go buy something that unlocks the ability for you to upgrade.
Yeah, we'll get there, but it's a little convoluted. But yeah, as far as the combat goes, like, to me, the first thing was the controls.
Yeah.
Third-person controls are hard, and I'm very picky about them, clearly. And it was weird to do attacks on the triggers and parries on the triggers, but then have, like, ranged attacks on the face buttons and that quick turn. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because the quick turn was my first, like, okay, I need to change some stuff. And 2 seconds after they teach you it, they go, by the way, you can change the controls in the pause menu. I was like, okay, they knew. But I'm, like, accidentally doing too many things too often.
Yeah.
I Spartan Rage way more often than I want to. Well, I try to quick turn and I Spartan Rage.
You know how I am with Sony controllers and pushing the sticks in from us playing the Persona fighting games, which that triggers an ability you don't want to use.
Yeah, you get one a match. Match starts. Well, crap.
So I do it way more often than I ought to as well. I ended up taking a picture because I played a few hours with one set of controls, a few hours too. And now I'm to the point where I feel like I'm the most comfortable with what options they give you, but I'm still going back and hitting bumpers when I shouldn't hit bumpers. Mm-hmm. So I ended up switching attack and heavy to square and triangle. That does not make sense to me to hit triggers for an attack. Like, that was screwing me over so much. And of all the times that I've died or had to use the revive feature in the game, I haven't died to, I didn't know how to attack that enemy, but now I know, or, I didn't die to misinformation or just like a new enemy type and it making me learn. I just died to me pushing the wrong button.
That happens a lot, and I die. So my other issue with kind of the control talking is the targeting system just doesn't feel like every other game. Like, usually when you target something, you square up to it. And in this game, it's just like, no, if you do some attacks, they'll gradually go more towards that guy than the other people. But
it doesn't...
Switching targets is awkward. Like, I wish it was a little bit more like Hellblade, where you square up the target, and then you switch to, and you're clearly locked with the other target, you know?
In this game's... early on, you get maybe one-on-one fights, or maybe two-on-one, but it quickly transforms into, like, you're fighting, like, 6-on-1, and you don't want to square up, but it's like some like halfway thing where like it feels like the camera's locked in to you going straight if you click in the target button. But the payoff is that you can use your companion or the sun much easier if you lock on.
Yeah.
But you're screwed when it comes to blocking because you can only block this like percentage or this angle.
That's the thing that really bothers me is the block button is weird to kind of start with, but the fact that it's not like a direct parry, like you still need to be facing the right way. So like there's indicators that show you where it's coming from, and like it'll be coming at you at an angle, and it's like I can either slowly turn and try and block it, or I can quick turn, but 90% of the time I like quick turn and block and it still hits me in the side, and I'm just like,
and a lot of the things too, like block it's not a catch-all because people shoot explosive things at your feet.
Yeah, and you have to roll away. And that's my next awkward point. I don't like the dodging in this game.
No.
At all. It feels slow, it feels cumbersome.
I don't like having to double
tap. God of War's dodge was like the right stick. You just flipped it and you went in that direction. That being said, with this stuff, I've upgraded some attacks, and they fixed a lot of problems. Like, I was like, why can't I run an attack at the same time? Now I can run an attack. And I'm sure, because I haven't looked through the upgrade tree or anything, I'm sure there's upgrades to make it so that you can block a lot more percentage of things. I'm sure that there's upgrades to do this and that and the other thing. But it was getting in the way of me enjoying what I was enjoying so much, which is the story and the world.
The knock that a lot of people gave this game, even if they gave it a 10, is that there's too many RPG elements. I think that means that the game is the combat in particular, since we're still on that topic, is too reliant on leveling up and
it's so weird
putting points into skill trees, which is weird because, I mean, you have like an aging veteran of this franchise, and it still feels weird that without that, all you can do is throw an axe, pull back the axe.
That's all I do, by the way. This is basically a ranged game. Yeah, so for me, the sore spot is the combat and then what ties into the combat, which is the upgrading system in the menus.
Yeah.
Very cumbersome menus for what it is. Like, you switch tabs with R1 or R2 and L2.
Shoulder buttons,
but then you switch tabs within that with the
D-pad.
left and right D-pad, and like I accidentally flipped the wrong thing, and then there's a lot of text and it's kind of teeny, and there's a lot going on in them that makes me not enjoy just optimizing my character. Like an optimize button, like some games have, would kind of be nice. But the menu is like something I try to avoid as much as possible. I'm like, I don't want to go into that menu until I have to.
And the thing is, you have to, because you can't play better just by skill alone or like reaction time alone. You have to have better armor. I mean, I'm sure there's people that can beat it. You can
technically go through, I'm sure, you can go through the game and do stuff technically, but it's going to take you way longer because you're not doing as much damage. There's items that like prevent fire damage or prevent whatever, and you're going to want to equip those in sections that have that stuff.
But like, to play like effectively or efficiently, like you have to spend X amount of time, go into the shops, go into the menu, pick this up, pick that up, go out of your way maybe to collect this one thing so you can level up your armor set or whatever. Like, it's painful if you don't upgrade you and the boy and just every part of that.
The boy,
so,
specific the boy. So like the menus and how it ties to the combat and all of that is very strange. I do kind of wish that they went into a different system instead of the RPG system that they did.
Well, my main thing against that, too, and I know it sounds like we're hating it, but we'll turn the corner here in a second.
This is the end of me complaining, and then I get to go to praise.
The thing is that the game very much, from a cinematic aspect and whatever, it doesn't want you to stop the action. It wants you to keep running. It wants you to watch the scene, but when that big guy breaks through the wall or jumps down at you, it wants you to already be ready to start throwing or blocking or dodging. It's just weird that a game like that wants to just keep it going, like it wants to keep your hand on the controller and keep you focused into what's going on, has so many pit stops with, oh, you just leveled up. And not only does it tell you, you got some points, you got some money and stuff like that, but now it's like, can upgrade this ability now, skill points, or new skills ready or something like that.
There's a lot of currencies to spend on stuff too. There's like experience to spend, and there's like materials that you find to spend, and then there's items that you need to actually use the materials, and then there's enchantments that you enchant things with and put attachments and talismans. And there's just a lot going on, and it does feel a little unnecessary. And the thing is, I'm sure once you level up Kratos and he's good to go, like I said, we're only 8 hours in, I'm sure it plays awesome and fluid, and you have all these cool abilities. But like I said, for right now, it's interrupting everything that I like about the game.
Well, and like I said, this is a very war-torn person right now. Like he
can't jump. It drives me crazy.
He's seen and done it all, but you have to go through the like hero's rise sort of path as far as like leveling and stuff like that. Like that's what makes sense in more Japanese style games or more classic RPGs, is that you start off as like a kid or someone who's not a master, and then you have to put points. You level up, and that sort of... I will
say, the levels are not like... You're not leveling like crazy in this game, though.
Sure.
It's very...
Well, it's like armor and weapon-based leveling.
It's like Destiny light level leveling. But you're not like, oh, you hit some things, you're level 20, you hit some things, you're 21, you hit some, you're like level 2.
Yeah.
And you're fighting level 3s, and then you're level 3. It's not too much. That being said, I'm pretty sure that's about all the negatives I have about the game. Because going into the next stuff, the story, I'm interested.
Amazing.
I really wish I knew more about Norse mythology, because all I know is from random little things and Hellblade. So, there's some characters that I've come across, and I'm like, I feel like I should know who you are and what you're talking about. And, they bring up some terms and people and stuff that I know, and they are kind of explaining things to you, which is nice. But I feel like I would be more excited if I knew them myself. But that's
especially
problem,
like
obviously.
when they explain sort of like the core mechanics of like the universe that they're in and all the realms that they're going to. Even when some people pop up and they're just like, if they don't tell you your name or you don't see it immediately on the screen, you're like, I'm the son of this and this. I'm like, I know who you are, just because, growing up with some of this stuff or just reading books. But it's nice to know some of that stuff and then playing it out in a very God of War sort of way.
But yeah, the story has me. And the cool thing is the pacing of it is done really well so far. I love it is that linear open world that I think Horizon should have done. This is exactly what I wanted out of Horizon. This is the Rise of the Tomb Raider model, which is you tell kind of a linear story that you go through. That being said, Rise of the Tomb Raider story is garbage compared to this. But you do this linear story that you go to, and then it kind of opens up to a more like hub worldy thing, and you can explore these huge areas on your own, but it's not, it doesn't feel like this crushing huge world that you're just like aimlessly wandering around. Everything feels so connected and so
it does
intimate.
have that too, and I do like, basically like the natural kind of barricades or like looking over a cliff. Like obviously you're not going to jump down there or go past it, so it makes sense for that level to kind of lock you in a little bit and not give you free room. Or like sandbox free room, but when it does give you that, you're also looking over like a mountainscape, so it looks real pretty, and so you're getting some payoff even though you're being kind of quartered in.
I always just assume Kratos doesn't want to go that way. He's like, I don't want to go over that.
He makes it very clear in his dialogue that if it's not part of his
he doesn't care.
Part of his plan or part of what he wants to take care of right now, not important.
So yeah, like I said, I love the story and the world and how it's integrating everything. And this game does a lot of stuff that I really like about Rise of the Tomb Raider. Another thing is in Tomb Raider, you explore these tombs, and there are these mini puzzles that reward you with an ability or an item or whatever it may be. And this game has the same exact thing, and they do it the same exact way, which is you're not just wandering around and you're like, oh, here's a door, let me go in the door and do it, kind of like Skyrim. Let me go in the door and go to the end and then pop out another side. They show you the answer. They're like, here's a chest. Figure out how to get to it. And that's what I like, because I won't, if I see a door that's off the beaten path, I'm not going in the door.
Sure.
But if I see a chest that's right there, and I'm like, I bet I could figure out how to get that. And I've done every single one I've come across, except for where there's a couple of them that are clearly guarded by things that I can't do yet. But I've done every other one that I've come across, and I think that's the best way to do it. You're walking, you see a chest off kind of in the distance, just a little bit of it, and you're like, I'm gonna go get
And
that.
I like too that the boy that's with you, he will give you one or two like, oh, come look at this sort of thing. So
What's up there?
It's pretty natural, and especially since as a kid,
He feels really natural.
That
he's
kind of mystified by some of this, or a lot of these chests are big, sparkly, glowy. So he's like, oh man, what's inside here? Thankfully, some of those have health boosts in them for all of the clunky combat where I'm dying to buttons, so I can survive a little bit longer. But yeah, I do like how they're naturally kind of locked off, and you can tell they're in sections like, oh, this kind of obstruction, like I don't have any way to deal with that yet, but I know as soon as I get
it's got that Metroidvania thing, which once again is something Rise of the Tomb Raider did. The only thing I don't like about it, and I had this problem in Rise 2, is that sometimes you get to one and you're not sure. You're like, can I get this now, or am I wasting my time? And I've had that problem in Tomb Raider, and in this one, there was one or two chests where I would mess with it for like 10, 15 minutes, and I'm like, I think I need something else.
One funny part, and this isn't a spoiler by any means, but like you hit that point and the kid's telling you, you're wasting your time. What are you doing? Clearly there's a waste of time. Let's go back around and find something else. And
he's got jokes.
And
that's one thing in this game. This game has some humor in it, and it's not too in your face. It's mostly just some throwaway dialogue lines that feel like things people would actually say. I actually think Kratos is kind of the funniest character with his just dry answers to everything. He's real good. I don't want to spoil any of the jokes, but I do want to say, just keeping on the topic of like the boy and what he does. And this isn't really a spoiler, but he is like smart. He's like the kind of the brains, and in Kratos is kind of the brawn, and it works really well. Like I thought it doesn't feel like an escort mission at all. The boy's doing his thing and he's helping out.
Especially because
it's
he
done
can't
really, really well.
Die per se. Like you get game over just because he's got a health meter, so that helps a lot too. But yeah, I really do feel like he is a solid part of the combat. And like I said, you get to a point where you feel like, maybe if I did put some points into him, or maybe if I did kind of level him up or give him some gear, that he would be more effective. And then you get into a fight or two where you did put some, focus on him. You're like,
it's very
he
noticeable.
is good.
Yeah, it's actually, he is definitely not a detriment to the game. And like I said, I'm done talking about negative stuff about the game. Like everything else that I want to talk about is awesome. But yeah, the puzzles are genius in like the way that you just have like your axe that kind of freezes things and yourself. And I've already done dozens of puzzles that I'm like, oh, that was smart.
Yeah.
Oh, that was smart.
Yeah.
Oh, that was smart. Like, they still feel like God of War puzzles where you're just trying to lift the heavy door or move the, weird mechanic thing that, why is that here? Like, from this area to this area.
Why are there so many chains?
Yeah, I know. There's chains and gears everywhere. Yeah. But the amount of times you use your axe and how smart they were able to do the puzzles that aren't just hit the thing were great. And like a cool example is there's chests that have runes on them, and you basically need to smash all these runes before the chest will open. And I think that's a really cool way to lock things. And I've noticed some other locks that I don't know how to unlock yet. Yeah. And I know that because the little boy's like, hey, I don't know how to do that yet. Let's just move on.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, thanks, boy. So like the boss fights are awesome. In particular, I really like the boss fights and their mechanics. They're cool.
I like how they're introduced, and in typical God of War style, where what you feel like might be a sub boss or a mini boss just starts turning into a regular enemy. So that's really cool.
Yeah, that's true. The story is awesome. The A to B to C, the pacing of it. As soon as you start to get bored of an enemy or you start to get bored of an area, the game kind of 180s on you, and here's new enemies, and now this area is very different than where you just were. And there's the merchant type character that's pretty funny that they do the Resident Evil thing where he's just there. Yeah, and he's like, "Why are you here?"
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
There's constant humor. It's just like whatever.
Yeah. But I'm loving my experience playing through the game. Like I said, the only time I hit something that I'm like, is the combat, and I actually just turned the combat down to the easiest difficulty. I've been enjoying it so much more ever since I did that because I feel way more like a badass. I feel like Kratos is supposed to feel, as opposed to somebody who just and then falls over.
I didn't know because I didn't dig too deep in the menu that you could switch the difficulty on the fly.
I checked,
and I need to because that's the only part that's getting to me is just the dying part. Like I said, traversing stuff. There's even a fight where I felt like, oh god, here we go, I'm going to have to fight this guy, and then he just did it in the cinematics. I was just like, thank you. He looked way more epic than I would have been. Missing 3 axe throws and wait. Gotcha. That's just the only part that's throwing me off. And like I said, it's just weird coming from a God of War background. It's just like it's weird for the combat to be the thing that you're nagging on over and over and over. So I think difficulty.
Everything else is so good though.
Yeah,
and I do want to point out because it's cool because we talked about it last week and it's in my question topics. But like Horizon, just to keep harping on that game because I don't like it very much. This game is all one camera shot. Basically, there is technically 2 cuts that I've seen so far, but the game starts and follows Kratos, and if something else happens, like the camera might go over to them, but then it'll come back to Kratos, like in gameplay.
And obviously for like
there's
big
no
emotional
cutscenes.
For big like emotional moments, it'll pan out a little bit so you can see everyone's faces and reactions and stuff. But for the most part, it feels just like a natural like one take sort of thing.
It is one. That's so great because it eliminates the problem that I have with most RPGs and these open world things where I was over here and now I'm over here, and the game is literally all in engine, just following Kratos. The camera's maybe doing some stuff, but it's never cutting away from the action. It's always following.
There's no like fade to black, and there's no real like 20 hours later, sort of thing.
It's awesome how it does that, and it's super 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 immersive. And I've only, besides like menus popping up and them being like, do this now, do this now, do this now, do this, and like they do the force you to upgrade thing before you can move on.
And since this one's 40 hours, they really pace out the tutorial stuff. So you feel like you could kind of get like the enchantment and the trinket, or whatever. Like you feel like you get all that at once. and just be done with it, but you don't. You get it really piecemealed to you. So that's kind of annoying, but
yeah, the
par for the course in
the pacing and
games.
How the camera follows you and all that stuff is so cool, and it fixes like I said, that problem that I had. And I've only had my immersion broken once, and that was because you can't interact with stuff when there's enemies nearby.
Right.
And there was an enemy that I missed, and I actually fell into like the area where a chest was, but I couldn't open the chest because I shouldn't say fell. I went down there purposely, but I couldn't open the chest because there was an enemy like outside, and I couldn't open the door to get out, and I was just stuck in this thing. But they just have a pause, restart from last checkpoint.
Yeah,
it's super easy like to fix, so it's not like a big deal.
You can save anywhere and stuff like that.
That was the only time. Can you really?
Yeah, I think it saves by checkpoints, but you can stop and save.
But yeah, that was the only time where I was playing the game and I was like, oh, like you stopped my I was so invested and you stopped me dead in my tracks. But yeah, I think this game's great. If you have a PS4, I think you have to play this game.
No doubt.
Awesome. Super, really cool, like single player experience. We talk about all the time. That's single player, and we're going to talk a little bit about it today. Single player games are dying. Oh, it's the end of single player games. And then all these great reviewed games are all these single player experiences that let you get lost in a world or in a narrative, and that's exactly what this is. As of right now, on the scale to like the Uncharted 4s and the Last of Us remasters, like the games I really like, and then good game, like Horizon, I think is good. I just doesn't click with me. This is more in the middle, but higher, like a little bit higher. I still think I like Hellblade better at this point. But we'll see where the story goes because there's a lot more to this game.
And like I said, this is one of those when you hit hour 20, the combat, because you have spent points in this and you've leveled up that and you've bought in this item.
It feels like how you thought it would
then you'll feel like, oh, okay, that thing I said earlier where, was kind of clunky, like I'm waiting for the axe to come back, so now I got to block, like, all this stuff where you're not really chaining stuff together, whereas these previous titles, you very much did combos and...
Yeah,
felt awesome.
A lot of aerial combos that you can't do anymore.
I feel like you'll get to that point, but it's just such a long time getting to it, and maybe it will be a sweet payoff at the end as far as the combat's concerned. But it's not like the story pacing, sound, which I didn't even talk about. Yeah. I have this game blaring. I'm not using headphones for it, but I'm using like full surround sound because when the big monster guy pops up, I want my room to be shaking. Like I want spine problems because of this game, just because like that's how epic and like grand some of the sound is, along with the visuals. I mean, I'm pretty sure the top.
Real quick, what did you do? Performance or did you do visuals?
Visuals.
I did visuals as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's the description on there swayed me away from doing performance, and I knew it wasn't fast paced like these other games. So if I felt like, oh, this is gonna make me die because my reaction time was slowed because of what was going on the screen. Yeah, this is very, very cinematic as compared to the other games, which were 50-50. This one's very much more cinematic. So
I will say it's interesting what they did to Kratos. Like people always talk about, oh, Kratos is a garbage character, and he was never. And like I always liked Kratos as a character, not because he was a good character, but like Greek mythology, when you listen to those stories, it never follows a good character. Yeah. It's always somebody who has a huge flaw and they get cocky and something bad happens to them. And that's the story of all of them. And that was the story of God of War, especially like the first one. Like the whole game, Kratos is tricked. And I thought that was so cool. Little kid Kevin. I thought that was so cool when I got to it. And I'm like, oh, yeah, this is just like all the stories that I hear. So I, growing up and hearing that people are like, man, Kratos is just a garbage character. I'm like, yeah, that was the point. So it's cool. It's interesting that they are so able to kind of redeem, like they are.
And they put him in a good mythological setting, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good way to start, because we're in somewhere else.
Norse mythology is much more mature in some aspects than Greek is. Like you can get the big flashy battles and wars and stuff like this, but you get some weird stuff with Norse mythology. So him being grizzled and kind of like hardened to the world sort of thing, like the grizzly old man, it makes him fit in this world a lot better, and they can do more interesting stuff, I think, in some regards, where it's not all about just like the big stabby moments and stuff like that. So
we shall see. Any closing things you want to say about it?
No, I mean, I will 100% be playing this solely the amount of chances I get. I'm going on vacation next week, so it's going to hurt and it's going to suck because I'm going to want to play the whole time and people are going to get ahead of me. But as soon as I get back, that's all I'm going to be playing.
Yeah, I didn't get to play much today. I basically only played like when it came out.
Yeah.
But tomorrow, the next day, whatever it takes, I want to chip quite a few hours into it each day. Maybe it'll suck me in like Rise of the Tomb Raider did, where I was doing all this side stuff without even noticing it. And that's the best, is I did side quests in this game. I didn't know they were side quests.
Yeah.
I was just doing it because I wanted to, and nobody really told me to. Like, I cashed it in, and then I was like, they were like, "Oh, thank you." I was like, "Oh, that was a side thing."
Yeah.
I just felt like doing it.
Yeah, and it
here.
feels like they have very clear benefits to doing it too, as far as this can make me stronger, so I die less, sort of thing. So,
but yeah, like I said, I'm going to be playing through it. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. The combat is annoying. Dropping it down to easy so far has fixed my problem with it, and just kind of made it into a flashy, more power fantasy type thing, which is what I wanted. Yeah. I definitely PS4.
Yeah, this is my typical sort of like it's 3:00 and I'm at work and I'm just itching to play, and as soon as I get home,
I'm so excited for the story to figure out, like, because it seems like they're planting a lot of seeds in the story. I'm not going to talk about them specifically, but like they name drop this and then they allude to that and then this and you're just waiting for the like eruption to happen, and not there yet. But
very tense first few hours as far as
so good.
Like,
that opening is great.
You can tell something.
Talk about some of the best like video game openings. This game is way up there.
Yeah.
But
wastes no time.
I'll give more impressions of how I've been feeling about God of War next week, and I'll probably have beaten it by then. I have to imagine. It's not that long. 25% through.
It's all you.
Let's move into the news. So first off, just a kind of public service announcement here for Sony gamers. Sony has permanent price drops on a lot of games, so I figured we could just kind of go over a couple of the ones that maybe matter, maybe people want to get into. So the whole Playlink series, which is Hidden Agenda, Knowledge is Power, That's You, and SingStar, I believe, they all drop from $20 to $10.
Yep.
Some of those are worth picking up. I think Hidden Agenda is worth picking up for $10. Knowledge is Power, I think, is a fine $10. That's You, I think, is a good $10. I don't know about SingStar. Never played it. You wouldn't let me.
I would get it above Hidden Agenda.
Really?
Yeah.
Until Dawn, Rush of Blood's $15, and that was $20, so that's not a big deal. Gran Turismo Sport dropped to $40. Knack 2 dropped to $20. No Man's Sky dropped to $20. That's a big one because that's launching on Xbox One soon.
For more than that.
Yes, for $50, I believe. Last Guardian dropped to $20. That's a really good one to pick up. Everybody's Golf, another $20 one. Good one to pick up.
That's crazy value because that is one of the most like expansive sports games.
There's a lot to it. Gravity Rush 2 is $20. That's a good one to pick up.
Easy pass.
A lot of PSVR games. Eve, Battlezone, Farpoint all dropped to $20. Neo dropped to $20. That's one.
That's good.
That's one. Wipeout Omega Collection is another big one that dropped to $20 because they just introduced that free PSVR patch.
Yeah.
So that's pretty huge. As well as The Inpatient, $20. Uncharted Lost Legacies, $30, and then Shadow of the Colossus already dropped down to $30. And that game sold really well, so it's interesting that one.
Only more worth it if you, for some reason, haven't ever played it.
Yeah. And then finally, the Horizon Zero Dawn. I believe the original one dropped to $30, and then the complete edition dropped to $40. So lots of good deals, and if you have your Best Buys or whatever, you get additional money off of those purchases. So definitely
lots of good value.
Speaking of good value, let's talk about Shenmue Collection. This was announced during the Sega thing. We got 1 and 2, and it's going to be $30. So did we talk about this last week?
I think we mentioned it, but we didn't go into any sort of depth.
Yeah, I didn't know if we talked about it, but 2018, the port studio that's doing it worked on The Witcher 3 and worked on Killzone Shadowfall.
I'll take it.
They were like an outsource company for them. So they're going to be working on this collection, so that's interesting. And then I don't think we had the price at that time, but it is It is a $30 game for both of them together. So that is
easy buy.
Yeah, very, very awesome. Shenmue 3, we'll see how that when that comes out. But
TBD.
This is supposed to be coming out this year. Just before we were filming, the Games with Gold got announced. So next month we've got Super Mega Baseball 2. I don't know what that is. Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. That's a big one. They seem to always have a haymaker in the last couple of months, so that's awesome.
That game is so worth free, too. You can get insane value out of that.
Play the first hour of the game. If you loved the first hour, just stop playing. Or, if you didn't love the first hour, play the next 50 hours. Because one of those two things has got to get you. They split right down the middle, so they're as polar opposite as possible. So you either have an awesome hour or an amazing 100 hours, or however long you want to spend in it. Sega Vintage Collection, Streets of Rage.
Love Streets of Rage.
And then Vanquish, which is like a third-person futuristic kind of Halo-ish looking thing.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So those are your free games, and then we don't know the PlayStation ones, but these just dropped in. Having Metal Gear Solid, I was like, oh, we gotta throw this on the show. Next up, very interesting. Dark Souls Remastered for the Switch has been delayed. So this is a story that kind of went under the radar, I feel like. So it was supposed to come out early May, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
And they said, due to various reasons, the release for the Nintendo Switch version of Dark Souls Remastered has been moved to summer 2018. We offer our sincerest apologies to everyone anticipating its release, and hope you will enjoy being able to play Dark Souls anywhere at any time. That is huge.
Yeah.
It seems like developing stuff for the Switch may be a little bit harder than people may have originally thought. It seems like Nintendo's knocking it out of the park, and Capcom seems to be getting it. But a lot of these other ones that are kind of putting out their first games for it seem to be struggling a little bit. Whether it's like frame rate issues and they just release it anyway, like you got the wrestling game.
That's what I was getting ready to say.
Pushing it back and trying to.
My gut reaction is it's just clunky right now, and they don't want to fall into that same category as other games.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, frames are important, whether it's 30 or 60 in this game. Frames are very important because not only is the just structure of the game very frustrating, it's meant to frustrate you, and it's meant to punish bad habits, and the list goes on. Everyone knows the Dark Souls comparison at this point. But when the game does that to you, where it feels like the game caused it and it wasn't your mistake.
Then it's really unfair.
Yeah, then that's when frustration can turn into Reddit posts.
And people buy Switch games, so it's not like this game wasn't going to sell like crazy. So it's interesting that they delayed it. It kind of sucks that they delayed it, but I mean, I would rather the game launch and be, as just a dumbed down version of the other thing, kind of like Doom, than launch and be the WWE 2K18.
I don't feel like Nintendo is as good about fixing something post-launch. They do updates, and they do keep on top of games like Xenoblade Chronicles 2. They issued a number of patches, whether it was fixes or just additions to the game, to make some of the maybe annoying parts a little less frustrating. So they do it, but I don't think they're as good as a Sony or a Microsoft and like post-op sort of procedures sort of thing. I think they'd rather fix it on the forefront, push it back a little bit because they have all the time in the world.
Yeah, I'm curious how much Nintendo has to do with ports. Like, do you think they're in there and they have like a team that's like, hey, we're the you have a problem with a port, come call us team, and they're kind of ushering things along?
The way they handle their content spilling out, whether it's like YouTube or streams, like something makes me feel like they have sort of a grip on.
Well, to be fair, they revealed the remaster for Switch, like before anything else, and there's been a couple games like that they've done the reveal for. I think Mega Man X Collection was another one that they were like for the Switch, blah 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 blah, and it's like, oh, it's coming to the PS4 and the Xbox One also, but the Switch, like that's.
So I feel like just the way they are with their content and their brand and their image, it makes me feel like, hey, like this doesn't meet our quality as far as like gameplay and stuff like that. So
the Nintendo seal of quality.
Yeah.
I agree, and like I said, sucks that it's getting delayed because a lot of people are interested in that, and that's one of their kind of flagship Switch titles this year, honestly.
For the first part of the year, at least until we learn more, maybe.
Yeah, but I'd rather have the game work and not come out and have to be fixed.
Especially that game.
Next up, I just thought this was a funny story. Good old Cliffy B. He likes talking, gets himself in trouble sometimes. Recently released Radical Heights in early access, which is I've actually seen it. We've talked about it on the show, but I've watched a couple, maybe like an hour of gameplay now.
Yeah.
Very early battle royale game that is more like extreme sports, like 90s cool game show type thing. More BMX and rollerblade feeling than military or just like Overwatch cartoony like Fortnite is. So an interesting take on it. Heavy reliance on cash and money and buying your stuff as opposed to just randomly finding it and things like that. With that said, he tweeted out, "Hey, Epic Games," who of course makes Fortnite, "could you stop trying to hire away my team? We launched Radical Heights on Unreal Engine 4. We're really happy with how it's going." So apparently, Epic's thrown in some hires over at their studio, and he's not too...
Or his team's getting a bunch of LinkedIn messages, and he's not appreciating it.
Very interesting. They were like, "Oh, you know how to do a battle royale? We'll just take you."
Yeah.
Yeah. How are you feeling about this Radical Heights stuff? It had that plus because Fortnite servers were down. It got a lot of attention. I went back and watched Ninja play it because that was the big deal that he played it, and it was the most streamed or watched game on Twitch. And he landed and went into a door and got stuck his first time playing the game. He played for 4 seconds before he got glitched out, which was pretty funny. But how are you feeling? Do you think there's enough room for this to do anything, or do you think?
I mean, I can compare the same sort of answer or reaction to stuff like Anthem and these other games that are more reactionary and they are just falling in line sort of thing. Sure, you can do your own gameplay spin on it, but I feel like you're already on the back foot when you enter in a year plus.
I think there's room for one more, and I think it's going to be a first-person one. Like, maybe it is Call of Duty. I feel like Battlefield makes more sense. But, like, I think that we're going to get a really solid first-person Battle Royale game for those people, and I don't know if anything else can swim in the environment. The pool's a little crowded.
Yeah.
You know? But anyway, I just thought this was funny, because
he's
always making headlines talking.
Well, and you can always... He's one of the people that you can read his posts or tweets or whatever in his voice and his personality. You're like, okay, I know how he's saying it.
Pretty good. And then, speaking of what I was just talking about in the Battle Royales, Black Ops 4 apparently is having a Battle Royale mode. That's not very surprising. It seems like Battlefield's going to have one. It seems like Red Dead might have one, and I wouldn't be surprised if any of those are true. Red Dead's would be cool, though.
Yeah, because it would be a Wild West.
With that said, there's also... That was like one rumor that was going around that Raven Studios was working on a Battle Royale. So this is a separate studio just kind of doing the Battle Royale mode. With that said, it seems like Black Ops 4 might not have a campaign. And this, once again, is a leak. And the word out on the street is that they're working on the campaign and they're not going to finish it in time. And the decision is, I guess, you tack it on later. Maybe you spin it off into something else. Or maybe you just don't do it. And... we don't know what we're going to get, but right now it looks like they might axe it and maybe put it into something else. So it would be the first Call of Duty without a campaign.
That's a dicey kind of move because we've seen what has happened to Battlefront 1 when it didn't have a story. Yeah.
Destiny.
So I can imagine them making, if they do the expansion pass thing, which, I mean... they're going to do it, or Season Pass, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
That they just make that the single-player expansion, sort of like how they, like, the zombie mode's here now, you know, sort of thing. So I would imagine if they do keep going with it, that it's just going to be its own addition to the game.
Yeah, I'm curious what they do. A part of me feels like they wouldn't do that. Like, I could see them being like, and the campaign is coming free later. And I honestly do believe that even Activision would do that. Because they did do the thing where if you pre-ordered Call of Duty 4, the remaster, they gave you the campaign 2 weeks early, and then you downloaded the multiplayer. And I feel like this is kind of just the opposite of that. It's like, all right, here's the multiplayer, and then we're doing the campaign. And then maybe they do a thing where it's like you can just buy the campaign for $15.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll ever do you can just buy the multiplayer because they would lose so many dollars making that cheaper. But I could see a world where they're like, we're launching with zombies, then we're launching with Battle Royale, we're launching with all this. We're going to let that kind of happen, and then we're doing our single-player thing. But yeah, I don't know. I think if they come out on stage, because they're revealing it next month, in like 2 weeks or something, they're doing their show. And if they come out and they're like, there's no campaign
planned or
there is
otherwise,
got to be a huge backlash.
Yeah.
Like, people can't backlash everything else and then not backlash Call of Duty, especially Black Ops, because that's the one I feel like everybody really likes the campaign for Black Ops.
Well, I mean, even the dumbest campaigns in those games still have, like, they're just enjoyable to play because it's just like a popcorn movie, or it's just like a big blockbuster film. It's just explosions and cool stuff and music, and that's about it.
Yeah.
So it needs to be there. It's not like a game like that can't exist without it. It's possible. It's just Call of Duty. Like it feels like it needs that 4-6 hour story, and then you can jump back into the multiplayer.
We'll just say I feel like it might just see. The thing is, you know who got away with it? Blizzard.
Yeah.
Though to be fair, they did not charge full price for their game. I believe. Ooh, I'm not
it was
actually.
like 40.
Was it?
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's true.
There were editions that cost full price.
I'm not sure that's true. I don't know how to look that up, but I'm not sure that's true.
I paid full price because that was like a digital deluxe or something.
I know on PC it was cheaper for sure.
Oh, that's the only.
On consoles, I think it was still 60. Fact check me, but I think it was still 60 on consoles. And I still, to this day, I'm like, why doesn't that game have a campaign? It doesn't make sense to me, blah, 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 blah. And I feel like, I mean, Blizzard is Activision. I feel like Call of Duty might be able to be like, eh. And they have so many fans that they'll get defended.
Maybe, but, I mean, it helps with Overwatch, as an example, because they release all those videos and have all the events and stuff like that where you feel like, I'm learning about the characters even though I don't get to, like, play and witness it. So you have at least that, but you're not really going to have that with Call of Duty. I feel like the only game...
Man, that's soap. What a cool character.
I feel like the most natural kind of way that you can go about skipping over a single player is the way that Siege did it. But like I said, that's more like
they got
Overwatch and
for that too.
In the fact that they have characters and backstories and stuff like that. So I don't know. You can...
We can say, what was that girl's name? Habana?
Oh, Habana?
Yeah. Just to call back from last week, that's the character that I liked. We took like 25 minutes to look it up. And
I lined up all the photos and said, is this her? Is this her? Is this her?
Yeah. I was like, you can see her face. Let's narrow it down by that. But yeah, I think Call of Duty might be able to get away with it, and I'm interested because as somebody who, like Overwatch, I wanted to like, but couldn't like the fact that they didn't have the campaign, I was like, I'm out. You know, Shark Tank, I'm out. Call of Duty, I'm out before you even walk in the door, basically. So, like, it'll be interesting for me just to see what happens.
You have to basically, now that I've kind of been talking about it, you have to go the Siege route if you are Call of Duty, which isn't cartoony and fun and, you know, pops on the screen sort of thing. Like, if you're going hardline military shooter, you have to, okay, you're playing as Soap now, or you're playing as X person, you know, whatever. So that's kind of the only way you can get by with it, but I wouldn't say that you're not going to face a ton of backlash.
I agree. All right, let's move into some comments from last week's video. First off, Johnny Wellman 3 says, single player is boring. Sit by yourself, play a game you paid $60 for to beat in 15 hours, then never touch it again. Plus, I can't stand playing against a computer. I want to play against real people, their skills against my skills. That's what gaming's all about. That's why I play on Xbox for multiplayer. I don't know why that matters. I will never, ever play a boring single-player story game. I don't know. I play single-player, like, if we remove the outliers, right, which is, I'm going to say, the games that I played the littlest amount of, and the games that I played the most, which is, like, Fortnite and MMOs.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know what I played the littlest about. If I look at that middle thing, most of that single player, whether it's playing Mario, whatever, like Mario 3 for the 100th time, or it's going through my yearly playthrough that I've been doing of Until Dawn. I'm like, oh, Halloween. Let's play through Until Dawn. Like, I get so much mileage out of single player games, and more importantly, for the most part, there are exceptions like Halo 2 and things, but single player games stick with me a lot more. They're like, when I think about these moments and the set pieces and emotional beats and all the stuff that I kind of carry with me outside of the game, they're what's worth the money and the time and the investment to me. Not so much like Fortnite. Yeah, I have 10 things I can tell you right now that were really freaking cool, but I've spent so much time with that game to only have these 10 things to carry with me, whereas I played Until Dawn for 8 hours, and I have all these moments where I was like, I really liked this, and I really liked that. Like, the impact of it's just harder.
Yeah, like, for me, the core of that debate, single player versus multiplayer, it's all just, like, what you use games for. I don't watch hardly any TV anymore. I watch, the big films at least, but I don't watch a film every night or every, 3 every week. I don't read books anymore at all.
Or the newspaper.
I just read enough
I barely
where
read
I can
Twitter.
understand subtitles because anime and stuff like that depends on it. But so like I substitute good character stories from not so much TV, but just like moments from TV. That's what TV is good for, is like moments. So stuff like Friends, Seinfeld, like you remember moments.
Yeah.
Books have very good character development and stories and journeys. Films give you like, seeing all that come together. People, like you can see emotions in people that it would take you half a page to describe, I guess. Instead of reading the man's furrowed brow or something like that, you can just see him being like heartbroken or something. Like I substitute all that for games. So I get the single player aspect, which is wanting to see all that. You want to see the big epic moments. You want to have the stories. You want to come onto your friend's show and be like, oh man, that one moment. And then he's just like, yeah, but did you see that other moment? So it's like well-crafted stories, which is what I use them for. But there's X percentage of me, and there's a large percentage of people out there who mainly use it as competition. So they're the people that, if they're old enough, I guess, they grew up in the arcades saying, bring your quarters, I'm going to beat you sort of thing. They're the people playing fighting games where, you don't want to play against a bot the whole time. You want to instantly break open the seal of the game, put the disc in, and go online and just start punching people. Or they want the high score. They want, whatever source. They want the competitive aspect of it, and I think that's where this guy or girl falls in.
Yeah.
And that makes sense to me because I wouldn't say mine's 50-50, and I've noticed too, since I was probably about 10 all the way to 30, where I'm at now, that percentage or that kind of meter where, I used to be highly competitive and, I wanted to break from that and play the 100-hour story. It's swayed back and forth kind of depending on where you're at with life and just kind of what you want out of stuff. So I see both sides. For me, though, value-wise, I mean, I'm always preaching games like The Witcher 3, stuff like that has 200 to 250 hours of content in now like $20 worth of packaging that you can find on Steam or any of these sales. I always play the 100-hour, the Final Fantasies type games and stuff like that, where I just can just relax and just go through a world for hours and hours and hours. Play the series like Mass Effects, where it's character driven and stories, stuff like that. Sort of like you said, like you can mention League of Legends and Kellen can be on here talking about the game and oh yeah, that one match and oh yeah, I did that one thing, but you put a camera on me and ask me about Mass Effect, and then 10 hours later, you're like, okay, I've had enough. So I think it's just kind of what you want, and I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. It just depends on, what do you put in the disc in for? Is this, hey, I just want to kill 30 minutes. I just got home from work, and I'm going out with some people later, so I just want to kill a few minutes. Yeah, there's no way you're ever going to play, like, this God of War or The Witcher or Mass Effect or something like it's pointless. You could play 3 Fortnite matches or 5 Call of Duty matches and get more bang for your buck sort of that way. But as far as Value Town is concerned, I don't know that single player is really worse off than multiplayer. It just depends sort of thing. So
and to me, I'm such an art person. I'm like, games are art and they need to be preserved. But it's true. So even though I see the competition of Fortnite and I love and I read the patch notes and all this stupid in-depth stuff that whatever, I still like look at that game and I'm like, man, I can't believe they were able to deal with the pop-in from this and deal like and the personality of these characters that don't have moving faces, and they're able to do all that. Like, I pay so much attention to that, and I was talking to my friend about it, and I was like, it's like playing chess, and like I appreciate the game of chess and the competition of chess and how great that game is, but also like the chess pieces and how they're crafted. I care about that too. Like, all of that, it makes sense to me. Whereas a lot of people are just like, it's chessboard and you play a game. You know what I mean? It's just different. And we were going into this discussion of the problem is when they were made, they were called video games because they were like board games. And board games haven't, I mean, there's more complicated ones and stuff, but they haven't evolved. And video games have evolved, like, I feel like past game, but we named them video games so long ago that we're kind of stuck with it now. Yeah. And it's just that word game that I feel like people really gravitate towards and pull from because, yeah, a game is this competition, and, you know, but it's become something different in this aspect, but it does still have that aspect.
And it's cool. Like, you can put this guy, you can put Overwatch in for this guy, and you can put Overwatch in for maybe someone like you, or maybe someone a little bit deeper into the, you know, super nerdy, like, oh, this is an art form, you know, sort of thing, or just people who are just more into character-driven stuff, and they can look at a character and be like, oh, cool, he's got this ability that blows him up, and he does this, and his ultimate does that, and that scene, and the opposite person can be like, oh, I can really see how the writer of this story, I can see how this, like, character was probably thought up in their head, how some influences in their life. It's a little
bit like I won't change characters in something, even if they become the worst in the game and whatever. I'm like, oh, but I really like this character. Whereas Todd's like, oh, a grenade launcher. I'm playing as that guy. Yeah. Oh, they just added the guy with a sword. I'm playing as him. But yeah, just different strokes for different folks, you know? We should probably make a show about that. Next up, World End says, I don't understand how somebody that owns a PlayStation 4, or even somebody who doesn't, isn't hyped for the new God of War. This game looks like the pinnacle of storytelling, characters, soundtrack, graphics, gameplay, everything. It doesn't have online bullshit, no microtransactions, no 5-season passes before the game's even out. It's not a 5-hour game. It's 30 to 40. It has great pro support. That is definitely true. The pro support on that thing is awesome. Great difficulty options, which I'm discovering myself right now. And this game is literally the bar for any game now. I do agree with a lot of that. I wasn't hyped for the game. I turned on, like, I ordered the game for pickup, and that usually means because I want to play it before the mail would show up. Didn't do it. Went to the park, went Pokemoning, got my Mew, like, all the stuff. Came back 5 o'clock maybe, put in the game, still not that excited, talking to my friend who also just picked it up. I'm like, hey, we'll start at the same time, we can talk about it. Started the game, and then I was in the game, and I blinked, and it was 10 o'clock, and I was like, oh, what just happened?
I don't think it was necessarily, not to get too technical, I don't think it was you not being hyped for God of War in as much as you weren't sure of the direction of the changes.
I mean, that wasn't it. I mean, I was sold on the game because it was God of War. Like, there was a time, I don't think I told this, there was a time where God of War was my number 3 favorite game of all time. Yeah. I really liked it, and revisiting it, I was like, okay, I probably like this because I was a kid, and there's boobs in it, and there's blood, and like, it was a lot of things that
those things usually help,
like, got away with playing. Kind of like the reason I feel like a lot of people really like Grand Theft Auto is they feel like they're getting away with some stuff. But I knew I was getting it from the start. I was like, oh, I love these stories. But there's always that thing where I'm like, something could have, like, did The Last of Us just do it better? Is this just going to feel like that? Whatever. And it's not. It's a totally, I mean, it has its similarities, but it's done in a totally different way. And I'm really liking the direction of it and everything. I just wasn't hyped. I wasn't looking up all these videos. I've done that before. I watched so much Suicide Squad stuff before I went to see that movie. I was like, yeah, and then I saw the movie. I was like, God damn it. Well, I wish I didn't do that.
That's what I was gonna say, is that you didn't watch all the pressers and all the it was like TV spots and whatever. So you were hyped, but you didn't have any specific thing to name. Like, this, like, if we were,
I didn't know anything about this. I didn't know when events took place, how close they were to the start. I don't even know what the plot was going into it.
So just so
I'm very content
we can make a Persona comparison, like, before that game came out, we would see, like, a character reveal and be like, that's what we can channel the excitement into, is, oh man, did you see this new girl or this new guy? Like, we have specific things we can name. Rather, when you're in the dark, it's like, okay, I'm content, I'm definitely buying the game, and I'm gonna play it. I just don't have anything to reference with my excitedness.
Right,
so.
that's true. I'm not like, ooh, I can't wait to do this, that, and the other thing. I was just like, I can't wait to play the game and see how it is. And guess what? It is beyond great. It is a really, really, really good game. On top of that, he adds, I also think that the Horizon thing you keep talking about sounds more like a you problem, not a game problem. I responded to that by, I mean, it's in the game. It's like a factual thing that you can look at and happens. It's not, this thing that only I have like, you fall off the cliff and it triggers the cutscene. Like, that happened.
Yeah.
And then, once again, God of War perfectly fixed that problem for me. Look at this game. Like, look at God of War when you're making your game. That's how you do it.
I mean, to be fair, this is what Horizon should have been. I think.
I agree with that too. Then he said, because we were talking about how good Sony was with their first-party games, he said Sony games have a lot of loot boxes or whatever you want to call them. The Last of Us Remastered multiplayer, Uncharted 4's multiplayer, Naughty Dog games are full of them. Everybody's Golf has microtransactions. Gran Turismo Sport is online only. You can't even create a save file in that game if you're offline. Yeah, that's completely true. I did forget about Everybody's Golf's microtransactions are bad. I hate them. I
forgot they even existed.
You can buy courses and
really
chocobos to ride around on, and like you can buy a whole bunch of stuff, things that like get you ahead, kind of.
Oh, okay.
And I wasn't a big fan of that. Plus, on top, you can buy clothes, and you can buy the currency to buy the clothes in the game. There's a lot of it, and I'm not a fan of that. The Naughty Dog one is definitely bad. I've never really thought about it because I got the collector's edition and they give you so many points that I don't really think about it. So the way that works is you unlock loot boxes when you play the game, but you can also buy the thing that you want. So if you're like, I want this outfit, you don't have to open loot box. Yep. You can just get the outfit. So I feel like that is better and way less intrusive because I did just get the things that I want, and then I open my free loot boxes and get random stuff that I don't really care about. But they do have a paid system for...
like a storefront, basically.
Yeah. So anybody can get the guns and anybody can get the stuff, and you can just purchase the one you want, or you can do it the loot box way. And I could see how that could frustrate some people for sure. And then what was the other one? Everybody's
Last of Us.
Last of Us. Oh no, yeah, that was it. And the Last of Us is basically the same. It is the same exact system as Uncharted 4. So yeah, there's definitely ones that I forgot about. World End very much our Sony fact checker. So thank you so much for doing that. And he also brought up the point that God of War is 30 to 40 hours, and I rebutted. I prefer a shorter game 90% of the time. He said, "What about Persona? You love your Persona. That game is way too long." And I'm like, yeah, that game is way too long. Like, it sucks because I can't recommend Persona to a lot of people because I'm like, and it's 105 hours. And I do feel like there's some fat in Persona that you can trim off. But to me, it's all a pacing thing. If you don't get bored, if as soon as you start getting bored, they throw a wrench into it or they mix it up, that's when it doesn't matter. The game has to not feel like it was 100 hours, and Persona absolutely didn't feel like it was 100 hours. So far, God of War doesn't feel like I've spent however many hours with it. Like, it's going at a good pace, and they keep mixing things up and keeping me interested. The story is bringing me forward. As long as it does that, it's fine. The problem is when there's a lot of downtime, when it's a lot of, okay, now do this for the 5th time. Now protect this generator for the 5th time. Now drive here and defend that for the 5th time. Now, that's when it's annoying because it feels like filler. And that's what I don't like. If you don't feel like you're filler when you're walking around and nothing's really happening, the characters are talking and they're growing as characters and you're learning more about them. You just need to be constantly engaged. That's it. And some games do that well, and some games don't.
Yep.
And God of War does it well, and Persona does it well. So, literally, also the other thing that helps Persona is they do literally a daily calendar system, so you know what day it is, and you get to choose 2 things or whatever it is to do for that day, and that's it. So, every decision you make feels really important and constantly keeps you engaged because you only get to pick 1 or 2 things to do.
I can't even do that many things in a day, so.
But like I was saying earlier, there's a lot of short things that I've taken just as much out of as long narrative things.
Sure.
So that's neat. And then, of course, Zach Yoder says, I am actually excited for God of War, even though I've never played any game in that series before. And he also says that he thinks that Smash is coming in September because that's when the online service launches. That is not something that I remembered. We were talking about it coming out in November or December even. The online service launching in September does help prove that Smash comes out in September. I just think it's so weird because if this is a new Smash and it's not just everything from the Wii U with a few new characters and they're calling it a different name and they're saying we're adding more stuff later, I feel like we need to know more about it if it's coming in September. Like some reveal. I can't see their E3 just being a bunch of Smash trailers. That's weird. You know,
I wouldn't put it back. That trailer was cool.
That trailer was cool, but like the whole thing about Smash is that it's a surprise. Like they all their trailers for Smash are these, you know, switches where they're like, oh, okay, this is for the new Animal Crossing, and then it's Smash Brothers. This is for the new it's Smash Brothers, and there's so little time left that I don't know what you can't just be like, I don't know. It's weird to me.
You get to a point with Smash trailers, especially with the past like 2 games that they've done, where you know it's a Smash trailer. But this game, or when they did it with the Ink Twins or whatever, the Inkling Girl, that's when it was just like, oh, this is a Smash trailer.
Well, they did that a lot. Like Pit's a little weird because he hasn't shown up in anything. But even in the last one, they would have these trailers where you didn't know what they were for, and then it revealed itself to be Smash, and it says joins the battle or whatever it is.
I like it. I like the idea of them doing like a 1 or 2 hour presentation, and then just like every 3rd or 4th video doing a Smash reveal.
Okay.
Just like, hey, we're excited to talk more about the new Donkey Kong games coming up, blah, 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 and then, like, new Donkey Kong characters.
See, this is what I want. I want them to go, at E3, here's, 8 characters that are in the game, the obvious ones, whatever. Here's
basically
a few
just
reveals.
Take that silhouette of people who are under the big fire banner.
And light it up.
Yeah, and just show them who that is.
Here's the big reveal, whatever, like, of all the people in it, here's a couple reveals. Then I want them to go, and every day, from now until release day, check our website. We're revealing an item, a level, or a character, and just like they did with Brawl, where one day you turn it on and you're like, Sonic's in this game, and one day you turn it on and you're like, what's a Smash Ball? And one day you turn it on and it's like, the hammer's back. Like you just every day up until the release, they do that. I think that's a good way to keep the hype and the interest going, and I would be on board for that. And then talking about God of War, just real quick, do you need to play the other God of Wars? No, not so far at least.
Probably
it helps.
Yeah, it helps, but as far as a getting used to the gameplay sort of mindset, maybe it's better if you don't play the other ones.
That's fair.
So
yeah, you won't. Maybe you'll think the combat's freaking awesome because you weren't invested in the other combat. That's fair. I will say they do. It is definitely a sequel. They do reference the other games, but you don't really need to know too much because the characters kind of explain it to you.
If you just looked at a short character sheet of what he kind of did in these games and who Kratos actually is, then you're good.
I agree.
Just need a quick little bio.
So let's move on to #GameStruck4. So this is where we pick 4 games that kind of made us into the person that we are today. Not necessarily our favorite or the ones that kickstarted our gaming, but this is if you were if you were to summon somebody with 4 things, what 4 games would you pick to summon somebody? Nick, let's start with you and hear what you have to say.
I don't order these in any specific way, but I'll start off with one, Phantasy Star Online. I wanted to kind of mix up the variety of these because I play a wealth of genres, especially now that I've started to branch out a little bit more, try to at least. Phantasy Star Online, Dreamcast, Xbox, whichever one, doesn't matter as far as what you're talking about, but this is what got me into online sort of teamwork, co-op, MMO, whatever you want to consider that route. This is what got me into that, and that's what broke me out of my single-player shell, was playing with that and finally getting like that group of friends. I'll mention another game where you have a friends list and stuff like that, but where the group of friends and you see that person jump on and you're like, oh, so-and-so's on. Now we can run through this level or this, dungeon or something like that. Like that was the first backstory. Me growing up as an only child, I don't have the brothers and sisters who I could have done this with. So it's cool for me to finally have that like traveling group of friends who, maybe we're all at the same level or maybe we all had some cool alt accounts and stuff like that. But it was really cool to have that group of friends to play with over and over and over, have all the stories from, like we said about some of the multiplayer only sorts of games. Maybe your experiences drop down a bit because you're doing the repetitive, maps or gameplay scenarios, stuff like that. But it's cool to have like those heart-to-heart or person-to-person moments from playing something like this over a long stretch of time. And that was cool because that was like the hallmark game for me growing up online. So that's why it's on there for me.
Interesting. Do you want to go back and forth, or do you want to...
Yeah, let's go back and forth.
Okay. For me, I'll start with my obvious one because I've told this story before. Mega Man 3. This is the reason that I game is this game. I fell in love with it. It was my brother. See, I have the opposite thing. I was in a house with 5 other kids. Well, some of them were way older than me at the time. I was the youngest. And my brother had an NES, and he had Mega Man 2 and 3 and whatever. And what I really liked Mega Man 3, I loved the ability to pick your own level and do it kind of in your order, kind of your own rules to the game. And I loved watching him play it, and I loved playing it. And that was the first game that I personally owned was Mega Man 6 because I loved Mega Man 3 so much. I was like, I need to have Mega Man 6. And then I got Mega Man 5, and then I got Mega Man 1. Like, it was the kickstarting of this is something that I really, really love. And everything that I did to kind of in the real world, I would always like link comparisons to it, whether it's being like, oh, okay, this is a Mega Man 6 one, but okay, Centaur Man. I was like, hey, he's a half-horse human guy. And I remember asking my teacher, I'm like, what's a centaur? She's like, oh, that's a half-horse human. And I'm like, oh, it makes sense. I would always link comparisons. So this is kind of my first taste of like loving a video game. This is Mega Man 3, so easily has to be on this one.
My next one is Counter-Strike 1.6. Like I mentioned a few minutes ago, having like that friends list option was huge for me. This was my big PC moment, PC gaming moment, I should say. But this one wasn't so much having that traveling group of friends. We're all doing the same, sort of couch co-op over the internet sort of mindset. This one's more... I want to fight all my friends. I want to kill my friends, and I want to message them, email them, type over AOL Instant Messenger, haha, you suck, I crushed you, or, message that same person, oh, you think you're cool, like, come to this hallway and let's have a knife fight, or something like that, in game.
Dang.
Should be noted in today's time and age, or pistols only, or, something like that. That was like the awakening of my competitive nature. Obviously did arcades. I played fighting games when I was little, all that sort of stuff. So I had that aspect. But as far as like online, and there's the text chat and games and stuff like that, where you can really just like, you feel like you're getting like white knuckles and stuff. Like you're just really getting into it. That's where like the boom headshot meme comes from, is that game. Like, you're just really all about some Counter-Strike. And that's where my multiplayer competitive nature was born, was that game. And I think it's probably still the best version of Counter-Strike, even though obviously now it's super dated, gameplay elements and visuals and all that stuff, especially. But that was the kind of awakening of my PvP multiplayer gaming experience.
My next one, I'm going to go with Clock Tower 3. Not my favorite horror game, but definitely probably the most impactful one. I'd played horror games before that, my Silent Hills and things, but this is the first one that I beat, and I think that that's important. I played through a lot of it with my sister and with my niece, and it was the first time, I loved like watching slasher movies and things like that, but it was the first time I realized fully that having control of the character could be way scarier than watching it happen. And like I said, this is the first one that I beat. There was a part in the game in particular where I wouldn't go through this door because I went through it once and something happened and it scared me. And we were playing the game together and I was like, we're searching, trying to figure out what to do. And I'm like, we're not going through that door because there's a spooky scary behind it and we're not going through it. And then, of course, I fell asleep one night and I woke up the next morning and I was like, oh, you moved on in the game? She's like, yeah, how'd you move on? She's like, I went through the door you kept saying to not go through. I was like, I was too scared to do that. But this was kind of the, okay, I can get through these horror games and really enjoy them. And I played so many games that were so similar. Games where you can't really defend yourself, or defending yourself is all you can do. You're not being the aggressor, you're the prey. And you're running around and it's kind of it's obscure and you're not entirely sure if the people that you're talking to in the game are all there or, things like that. It is a very different way to look at games and approach games. But my love of horror and just this horror game put together, I think, is what put me down this trajectory of survival horror being one of my favorite genres of games. And I still, I go see basically every horror movie that I don't think looks terrible, and I play
every not straight to video.
Yeah, and I try to play every mainstream horror game that fits the survival horror mode and not just the boo jump scare mode. So mold. I don't know why I said mode, but Clock Tower 3 is my choice for my horror roots.
Next one for me, like you keep saying, not the best in this genre, not your number one per se, though you could probably make an argument for it. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Not even my favorite KOTOR game. I still like two more. Fight me. Please don't. I don't want to deal with that.
Knife fight me in the hallway.
In game. But this game to me is what got me into the aspect of character-oriented stories where the character I care about the least, at least ideally, is myself. Because they throw in some people that are kind of like you, where it's this game in particular where it's humans, or any other type of game that's like it, the Mass Effects and stuff of that nature, or even Persona per se, where you get a lot of people who share some similarities with you, whether it's physical appearance or they're the same race as you or whatever, but then they start throwing in some people who are very much not like you, and when you start to care more about the other characters, even though you're the big hero who's going to save the day or, whatever the story is behind your guy, that's when I feel like the game's got you as far as like a storytelling aspect where you quit caring about yourself, even though the game is just riddled with what decision do you want to make? What words do you want to say to this person? Like, it's very much about you, but you're not saying it. I feel like you get to the point where you're not saying it as much, I want to sound cool, or I want to sound smart or funny, or I want to be a dick. I think it's more, what are they going to do? Like, can I make this person like me or hate me more through what I say? So you start turning all of your attention outwards to all the people that are with you, and you start caring about them. You start running to their bunk on the ship or the place where they're hanging out, and you want to talk to them and do missions for them and get them to like you more and get them to do things for you. I'll leave that vague, and whatever. Like, and then you get to the point also where you're doing missions and you're going through the game and you're like, I gotta have this person with me because I gotta hear what they say, I gotta hear what they think. And there's different elements of the games too where you're just like, I just really want their personality or the way they handle situations or just their abilities with me. So, like I said, you get the whole squad thing and you fight for your friends and all that, but you care about them. You get to see them from the start of your journey to the end of your journey, sequels and stuff like that. Maybe you get to see those old faces pop up. It's really cool because you start to care so much about everyone who's not you. And that was the first game, not that did it, but that was the first game to me that like it excelled in, and that's why I like the Witchers and the Mass Effects and all these other games that are pretty similar to it. So, interesting.
My next one, we're going to start getting more modern because, like you, I played a lot of multiplayer games, so it was a big focus, but I've gone so far away from that and almost like turned on that up until Fortnite. Like I would play Splatoon and stuff like that, but I've turned so much on that I can't really say like Halo 2 or anything anymore. If I only had to pick 4. If I was picking 10, it would be on that.
Sure.
But, so my next one is a more recent one, and that is going to be Persona 4 Golden. So this was kind of my entry into Japanese culture and realizing every other game on this list that I've mentioned so far is Japanese, and how much I like that stuff once you get past and you understand kind of the humor and the silliness that goes on mixed with the serious tones, and how much I love the cycles of splitting a game into 2 basically different games and kind of smushing them together, and how well that can work. My turn-based combat, I hate turn-based combat. Man, I love Persona 4. These long games, I hate long games. Man, I love Persona 4. Like, it was the turning point for me where I was like, I don't like this and I don't like that. Stop talking to me about it. I don't want to play Final Fantasy X. I didn't like that game. I don't want to play, you know what I mean? And I played Persona 4 and I was like, I get it. It clicked and I get it, and I was able to go back and enjoy all of these other things, and obviously watch animes which 5-6 years ago, you told me I was going to be watching some waiting for Crunchyroll to update and put out an anime. No way in hell. But here I am.
We got him, boys.
Yeah, my girlfriend always gives me crap for it because literally when I started dating her, she's like, you used to make fun of anime kids so bad, and what are you doing now? And I'm like, I'm waiting for this anime. I'm waiting for this anime to go live. Leave me alone. So
it's 12:30. It's not even up yet. What the hell's going on?
So Persona 4 Golden, definitely the thing in my life that did that, and I am so sad that I didn't play it earlier, like when it first came out. I have so many friends that love that stuff, and they've since moved away, or we just don't see each other as much. And I would have loved to be able to have these conversations and play through these games and learn about more. And try out more of them and maybe buy them for cheaper because they all spike in price. And I didn't get that experience because Kevin was like, I know I'm not going to like that, blah, 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 blah. And then he played it and was like, crap, it's great.
To be fair, I don't think it was until 5 where it was commonplace to hear, oh, Persona. Yeah, those games are amazing. Persona 3.
I disagree because I had a Vita. And that is all anybody talked about. If you listen to any sort of Vita podcast or anything, everybody's like, Persona, Persona, Persona. And I bought it and had it for a year or 2 before I played it. Because I bought it on sale, because I was like, I keep hearing good things. And then I just sat down and played it. And I remember messaging our mutual friend, who also doesn't like anime things at all. And I was like, man, it's been 3 hours and I haven't played yet. And all this stuff, like I was just trash talking it. And then I went on a vacation and I came back and I'm like 50 hours in and it's great.
But I think the average person who doesn't maybe tune into podcasts and stuff like that, I think it's easy for definitely 3 to sneak past them, and it's multiple versions. 4, I think, finally got people, sort of talking about it in small groups, and then 5 just like, okay, it's here.
Yeah, well, when you're doing the awards and they're like, Horizon, Zelda, Mario, Persona 5, like you gotta pay attention a little bit. So yeah, Persona 4 Golden.
To keep on the modern track, we'll go with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time. I typically play longer games, though I won't ever shy away from like X-Men Arcade, Turtles in Time, the shorter games that you can play over and over and over and over and over. This one was the biggest one because I grew up in arcades, and I don't even want to know how many quarters or tokens that I've spent on this game and how many hours I've played with on it at home, or emulators or anything like that. I have just played the living crap out of this game. Top to bottom, it was great for me growing up because I played about as early as I could, or as early as I could at like acknowledging what video games are and understanding, that sort of thing. But I want to say I was like 6, 7, whatever it was, whatever age. I go back and check, but just... It was seeing the cartoons, it was playing the games, it was having the toys, it was the full circle of just like, I can go from having my little Donatello and Leonardo and, saying, oh, it'd be cool to do this, this, and this, and then just playing the game just constantly. I like the other Turtle games, but this one stood out to me because of the soundtrack and just like the wacky sort of adventure you go on versus just the normal stuff you see in all the shows and movies and such. But man, that one just stuck with me. And that, like I said, I normally play now games is more like stories and stuff like that, but that one's just pure fun for me. Like, just pop it in, spend the next 20 minutes playing it. Man, I'm good.
I like that one. I played that one with you. So my next one, I definitely wanted to give to the story game. Persona was one, but I was already on board by then. So I wanted to give it to the games as this moving medium type thing. And I obviously wanted to go to The Last of Us, but I was like, that's not really the first one. Like, I think that one does it really well and everything, but the first game story where I remember being invested and, like, caring about what happens to this character or what doesn't happen to this character and things like that, to me was Infamous 1. So this was the end of my era as the competitive gamer. This was where it died. So literally, my Xbox 360 died. And it was dead. It red ringed. I shipped it off in its coffin. I've told a story before about how I got it to red ring because they wouldn't give me the refund or fix it or anything because it wasn't actually red ringed, and I red ringed it and shipped it to them. And while it was gone, my birthday came up and I got a PS3. And with that, I got I believe I got Uncharted, but I got Uncharted after. And I got Little Big Planet and some things, but I got Infamous. And Infamous was the first story game that I really remember where I was like, man, I care about Cole, and I care about Trish, and I care about, this world and these characters and what's going to happen to them or what might not happen to them. And that game is really good for it because it gives you choices. They're more black and white choices, but they're in Infamous 1 in particular, there's a lot of, like, this is a white choice, but it might hurt something in the black choice, or this is the black choice that might screw up the white choice. And that was where I was like, I'm playing this according to my own morals. And, maybe some people died that the good person may have saved, or maybe some people lived that the bad person might have killed, But that storyline really sticks with me. And thinking back, that's the first, like, grounded video game story that I remember that, is realistic and more cinematic and, had all these cutscenes and things that really brought you into it. Where I was like, I get why people like the PlayStation 3 in general, because that was kind of what they were known for. And then I went and got Uncharted and kind of got a little bit more of that. And just because I think The Last of Us sold me 100%, and I was like, okay, this is kind of what I want. Thinking on it, I think Infamous, if I didn't play Infamous, I think I would be different. And that's kind of what this list is. Like, if that game didn't exist in your life, would your trajectory be different? And I might be the Call of Duty. Like, I might only be playing Rocket League and Fortnite right now if I hadn't
definitely wouldn't
have a video game podcast talking about all this stuff.
Definitely wouldn't sway you away from Rocket League.
Maybe. I mean, competitive Rocket League's a big thing.
Yeah, people are way too good at that game.
It's not even fun to play anymore. But so that would be mine. That was pretty fun.
I like it.
I like when these internet random things pop up once every year, and we get to do our list.
I like that it started out with movies and being like a super serious topic, and then we were like, video game.
All right, let's move into the releases really quick and then get out of here because it is like 1,000,000 degrees up here, in case you couldn't tell from the video. So, some releases. We have Adventure Time, Pirates of the Enchiridion, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, PC, April 24th. I've heard the Adventure Time games are actually pretty good RPGs. Haven't played them.
Sure, it's a fun adventure.
But I know a lot of people like them. Next up, South Park, The Fractured Butthole, Switch, April 24th. There is a lot of Switch games coming this week. I only put the important ones. Galgun 2, PS4 and Switch, April 24th. The important ones like Galgun. You shoot people with heart bows and their clothes come off. This game was censored. I think Galgun 2 is censored. Not entirely sure. I know the first one, they changed some things about the kids and stuff in the game. So if you want the uncensored version, you're going to have to import that one, I believe. I also thought this game came out a really long time ago and was surprised to see it, so I put it on the list. Next up, Code 51 Mecha Arena, April 24th. This is a PlayStation VR game that's getting a lot of buzz. It looks like VR MechAssault. It seems like VR MechAssault. I'll show you some stuff for it when we get downstairs. But I was actually really surprised when I saw it. I was like, oh, and then I saw some videos coming up of early impressions, and people are like, this is a game to play in VR. They're like, it doesn't have motion. It's just DualShock 4. You're playing the game. It's like a serious mech game in VR.
Sort of how like Eve was for me. Like it wasn't all about just like doing crazy stunts and stuff like that. It was like you're in the cockpit.
Yes.
And go.
Yes, that's very much what it seems like. So I might have to check this one out. And then finally, Hello Kitty Cruisers, Switch, April 24th. The main reason I put this on this list is because this is like the rarest Wii U game there is. It's very hard to get. It was like hundreds of dollars to get the Wii U Hello Kitty Cruisers because nobody bought it for the Wii U.
You're talking about I was first in line.
So, well, that's the funny thing. I've seen a lot of like pre-order hype and stuff for this game because people are like, I'm going to buy it and not open it. I'm like, I don't know if lightning strikes twice like that. I'm pretty sure once the cat's out of the bag, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, and you have to hide it from like the general population.
So. You got your shelf, and then you got your closet with that game, and it's not good. Also, a fun little aside, Night Trap is coming to the Switch, which I think is that's going to be another limited run game.
One of probably the best time we've had here.
Best time you've had here, maybe.
Well, I don't know what you do in your spare time, but our group, best time we've had here for sure.
It's definitely
thanks to alcohol, too.
Interesting Switch game. I don't know how that one portable is going to work on the.
Me neither, but you will quickly notice. You will quickly notice if someone is playing Night Trap in Switch.
But the limited run is doing a release of that, so very interesting. But that's it for the news and the topics and the God of Wars and everything this week.
Yep. It's just basic to note none of these games are God of War, so just play God of War.
That's true.
Sorry, Hello Kitty.
Hopefully
you can buy the other ones, just play God of War.
Yeah, hopefully I finish God of War, or at least get super deep into it by next podcast. You're not going to be here next podcast, correct?
Correct.
Or is it the one after? Okay. So we'll have something. Hopefully. We'll have to see. But hopefully I finish God of War by then and we can talk about it. But that's it for this episode of the Press X Podcast. Thank you for being here, Nick.
Of course.
And thank you so much for watching. We will speak with you next time.